It's a story of evolution, not revolution at Zero this year, with a few practical tweaks that massage a bit more out of the 2016 bikes. For starters, there's a brand new motor, which uses internal magnets instead of the old surface-mounted ones. It'll give you exactly the same power and torque as the old one, but it's a bit more efficient, and it handles heat so much better that you should basically never run into thermal cutback issues anymore unless you're flogging the bejesus out of it on a racetrack. Also, thanks to some battery chemistry upgrades, they've squeezed a bit more power into every battery pack, and when you combine that with the motor, you end up with about 10% more range across the board. If you're more interested in quick charging than flat-out range figures, there's a new charge tank accessory that triples your charging speed when you plug it into a J1772 charging station. 70, yeah. There's also a couple of new models, although they're really just logical extensions of the old range. Let's take a look. The DSR takes the high-power motor from the SR and puts it in the taller, wider body of the DS Dual Sport. 70 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, but then it makes as much torque as the KTM 1290 Super Duke right through the rev range, so it's got more poke than a Facebook friendship from like 2006, you know, when everybody used to poke everybody. That much poke. There we go, got a little wheelie off that one. I think, and I'm not sure, but I think it feels a tiny bit softer off the line than the old motor, but it'll still get you into trouble if you don't respect it, as Motorcycle.com's Troy Shahan and I demonstrated in an unplanned bit of synchronised wheel spinning. Both had the same idea there. Handling is a touch slower than the SR due to a bigger 19-inch front wheel, and cornering grip on the road is a little bit compromised thanks to the Dual Sport tyres on this thing. It's a noticeable difference, but it won't slow you down much. In the tiny little bit of unsealed road riding we did on this launch, the DSR did the job fine. But is it really a dual sport? Look, probably not. The suspension's too short and too firm for any real trail riding. Still, it's probably my new favourite Zero bike just because of the bigger, broader riding position and that awesome engine. I reckon I'd fit some road tyres, scratch the D off the tank, and live happily ever after for the 500,000 kilometres it takes before the battery starts to go off a bit. As for range, well, around town the DSR is good for about 147 miles to a charge. But unlike petrol bikes, electrics get their best mileage in stop-start traffic. Riding it like an idiot out in the hills, I was showing 26%, and other guys were as high as 40% when we pulled in for lunch at about 45 miles. The famous, world-renowned Alice's restaurant. Apparently they're going to put a Zero burger on the menu here.
Got the BMW for you, sir.
Thank you.
Got the Kawasaki. Perfect. And then we got the Zero for you.
Ah, low calorie.
Okay, yeah, condiments over there. All right. Cheers.
Where's the cutlery? After that hearty lunch, it's time to set out for a fang on the other new Zero for 2016, the FXS Supermoto. This bike is the very naughty FX dirt bike, but they've added the new IPM motor, shorter front suspension travel, bigger brakes, and street sport wheels and tyres straight off the S-Series bikes. If the DSR felt pretty small and nimble, the FXS takes this to a whole new level. It is tiny, just 112 kilos, and on a tight, twisty road, it's an absolute ripper. And again, that feedback through the foot pegs, it's really interesting. Like there's no engine vibration or chain vibration to start shaking those foot pegs around. Everything that you feel is information and feedback about what's happening on the road underneath. I did find myself wanting a quicker turn throttle though. You've got to turn it a long way to get access to all that juicy power, 44 horses and 77 foot-pounds. And whether it's the smaller rear wheel or the fact that the old surface mount engine magnets sat further out from the centre of the rotor, the FXS doesn't have the same aggressive snap that the FX does. That means you've got to do all kinds of gymnastics to get a wheelie out of it. So I'm going to have to deduct 2 hooligan points. Oh yeah, this is an interesting piece of road. Good one for this kind of bike. Full of four-wheel drive, unfortunately, but not for long. Oh, yeah, I don't like the way that ABS kicks in. My test bike also had some issues with the ABS. It cut in way too early and it didn't release early enough. Personally, I'd pull the fuse out like I have on my own bike. But ABS on a supermotard's kind of like training wheels on a BMX. I mean, it's safer, I guess. You can switch it off, but only when the bike's stopped. So I'm afraid I'll have to deduct one more hooligan point. Range on the FX is about half what the DSR does. But with quick swappable batteries in it, the FXS is going to be a heap of fun on a tight racetrack and just about unfair on a city commute where it's 80 odd mile an hour top speed and shorter range won't be a problem. I guess I just wish it was easier to take dangerous and illegal risks on, that's all. It's still fun and it's still fast and it's still got enough shunt to stick with just about anything on a tight road. It just needs a big juicy dollop of mongrel. And until it gets one, I wouldn't call it a super motard, I'd call it a pretty good motard. So yes, 2016 is a year of refinement for Zero. These guys are still the only company manufacturing performance electrics in any numbers. Prices are down this year even though the range is up, and there's obscene money going into battery research right now, so that's a trend that will probably continue. If you need one bike to rule them all, electrics still can't do enough miles flat out to give you a long, fast weekend blast. But they're starting to get close, and if I had two bikes in the garage, I'd be putting all my weekday miles on the Zero.